Most people think the way to get an avoidant back is to stay close to him. They think softness wins. They think patience wins. They think if they just shrink their needs one more degree, hover one more inch below the radar of his discomfort, he will finally lean in, finally look at the version of themselves they kept promising to be, and finally admit he was wrong to walk away. They think this because this is what he quietly encouraged them to believe for the entire time they were together. You are not doing that. Not anymore. You are sitting alone trying to make sense of the exact sentence he used when he ended it. I just don't have the capacity for this right now, and you're running it through your head the way you'd run a coin over a table to see if it lands heads or tails. You're trying to decide if he's telling the truth, and the part of you that can't decide is the part this is for. Here's the truth no one wants to say in the beginning. You don't recover from him by getting smaller. You recover from him by getting so undeniably yourself, so honestly, so quietly, so unwilling to perform, that the version of himself he has been pretending to be no longer matches the room. That is what humbling and avoidant actually means. Not punishment, not strategy, not revenge. It is something much slower and much more precise than any of those things would suggest. It means you let go of the smallness he built you into. It means you let the version of yourself who kept dimming to keep his comfort intact, who kept translating her own needs into his language, quietly end. And when that version of you goes quiet, it is not a tactic. It is a structural change inside you. And what it does to a man like him, a man who has built his entire sense of self around the belief that he was right to leave, that you would crumble, that you were the unstable one, will rearrange him so slowly he will not be able to name what is happening to him. He will only know that something has shifted and he won't like it. Now let me explain this slowly because the mechanism matters. Think about a mirror for a moment, not the kind on the wall, the kind you carry. Think of it as the version of yourself you project, the version that shows when he asks you how you are, the version that shows on the nights he pulls away, the version that shows up in the message you send at 11 at night when he hasn't replied. For most of the relationship, you are holding the mirror at an angle. You tilted it toward him. Every reflection he saw was him, his comfort, his pace, his narrative. You arranged the light around his moods. You softened the reflection so it wouldn't startle him. You didn't know you were doing it. You thought you were being loving, and he thought you were being stable, and both of you were wrong. Here is what most people miss. The mirror he carries of you, the version of you he sees when he thinks back on the relationship, is not the mirror you actually are. It's the mirror you performed. He has been carrying around a polished, edited, almost pleasant reflection of you for months. A version that didn't ask for too much. A version that didn't name the pattern. A version that smiled when the smile cost her something. He doesn't know that yet. He thinks this is what you actually look like. He left thinking he understood the woman he was leaving. He didn't. The mirror you actually are is sharper than the mirror he carried. It is not cruel. It is not staged. It is simply accurate. And when you stop polishing his version of you, when you stop keeping the reflection soft for his comfort, a strange thing happens. You are not creating his discomfort. You are simply letting its source become visible. The mirror he has been carrying over you is no longer the clean room he imagined when he left. The mirror he has been carrying is now, for the first time, slightly out of focus. And a man whose entire withdrawal was built on the assumption that he understood you cannot tolerate being out of focus. Imagine him on a Tuesday night, 3 weeks after the conversation that ended it. He's at a bar with someone he just met. She's nice. She has a different laugh than yours. He keeps listening for yours under hers. He doesn't realize he's doing this. He thinks he's having a normal conversation. He does not know that the small thing he is missing, the slow pulse of recognition he used to feel when you said a sentence in that particular way, is the thing he traded away. He thought it was an inconvenience. He thought it was the thing he had to remove to feel stable. He didn't know it was the thing that made every other sentence in his life feel empty afterward. He didn't expect your absence to have a sound. He expected it to feel like relief instead. Here's the thing. There's a difference between the relief of leaving and the much quieter kind of relief he will not admit he is searching for. The first kind of relief lasts about a month. It feels like having his life back. He goes to the gym more often. He picks up the hobby he used to mention. He tells one or two friends what happened. Yeah, she was great, but it wasn't right, in a tone that is too even to be honest. Then the relief stops being relief and starts being the climate of his whole life. He can't pinpoint when it changed. He only knows that what felt spacious at week 2 feels empty by week 6. He tells himself he's still glad he left. He believes it the way you believe something that was true once, but isn't anymore. And here's something most people don't see coming. The mirror he carries will not stay still because he is not looking at a static picture. He is looking at every detail of his own behaviour in his memory, and every detail is replaying in a way that doesn't match the conclusion he reached that day. He said it wasn't right. He said he wasn't ready. He said the timing was wrong. He built a real little architecture of an explanation while he sat across from you that night, and the architecture was tidy, and the architecture made him feel sane. But the architecture has a flaw, and the flaw is you. Because you, the actual you, not the mirror he edited, did not ask him to be anything he couldn't be. You did not pressure him. You did not force a timeline. You did not demand the version of himself he couldn't yet access. You simply kept showing up, and showing up, slowly, was not the problem. The problem, and this is what he cannot admit to himself yet, was that showing up required him to show up too. And showing up too was the very thing he had spent his whole adult life architecting his life to avoid. Now, let me walk through what happens inside his head during the weeks after you stop dimming for him, because this is where most women lose the thread. The first thing that happens is that his relief, the relief of leaving, the brief sense of spaciousness, quietly thins. He doesn't know what to call the new feeling. He calls it loneliness for about 4 days. Then he stops calling it that because loneliness is too honest for the moment. He starts calling it between things. He tells his friends he's just not looking to rush into anything. He means it for the first week. By the second week, he doesn't mean it anymore. He is using the sentence to keep the room from asking him the question he cannot answer yet. The question his life is now asking him every day, quietly, like a clock you can hear at night but not in the morning. What does she see now that she didn't see when she was still holding the mirror at the angle I wanted it? He asks himself this for the first time about 6 weeks in. Not in words, in the moment he reaches for his phone. Reaches, doesn't open it. Sets it down, tells himself he's glad he didn't. He tells himself that 4 nights in a row. Then one night he reaches and opens it and types out something long. I'm not going to be who you want. You deserve better. I just couldn't be the man you needed. And he reads it twice and he deletes all of it. Not because it isn't true, because it isn't enough. Because underneath the apology he's using as a disguise, the actual sentence is much harder to write. The actual sentence is, I had someone who kept the room steady for me, and I am now in a room that shakes when I walk across it. He does not say that sentence. He deletes the draft. He puts the phone down. He pretends the room is steady. It isn't. Let me be clear about what is actually happening to him. What is happening is that the mirror he had of you, the soft, edited, easy version that never asked him to be honest, is gone. Not because you took it away, because you stopped holding it for him. He used to look at you the way he looks at a comfortable piece of furniture he doesn't notice, is there until it's gone. He didn't think furniture was important. He thought furniture was just the room. He didn't realize the room was the furniture, you. The way you didn't argue the morning after he pulled away. The way you didn't bring up what he did last week. The way you kept showing up with the same face for months, even on the days he didn't deserve the same face. He didn't see this as effort. He saw this as your level. He assumed it was the natural state of you. He didn't know it was work. He didn't know you were keeping the mirror polished so the room wouldn't tilt. And here is where the humbling starts. Not because you did anything to him, but because the room, without you tilting it for him, is now honestly tilted. Think about it like this. Imagine someone who has been driving a car with the steering wheel ever so slightly misaligned for a year. They got used to the drift. They compensated without thinking about it. They turned the wheel a quarter inch to the left every time they merged. Automatic, instinctive, no judgment involved. Then one day they swapped the car for a properly aligned one. And for the first few minutes, they keep correcting for the drift. They keep steering left. They keep fighting a ghost. And then for the first time, they feel what an aligned car actually drives like. And it unsettles them, not because it's wrong, because it shows them how much work they had been doing to compensate, and how much of that work was for a fault they hadn't even noticed. You are the properly aligned car. He did not know, until you stopped, how much of his life was spent compensating for the absence of you. And now that you have stopped, he cannot stop correcting for it. He cannot stop turning the wheel to the left against a car that wants to go straight. And every time he corrects, the mirror he's looking at, the only one he has left, flickers. I want to pause on this for one moment because I want to be accurate with you about what is happening, and I want this to be generous to him in the right way. He is not a villain. He is a man whose entire nervous system was built very early in his life around the belief that closeness will eventually cost him something he cannot afford. He watched a pattern repeat. He watched a parent leave. He watched the room tilt when trust was offered generously, and he watched that trust leave with the other person. He didn't learn that closeness was unsafe in one big moment. He learned it across 1,000 small ones. And he learned it so early that by the time he met you, the lesson was already grooved into his body. He pulled away from you not because you were too much. He pulled away because the way you were showing up was quietly demanding that he stop running the program. And he did not yet have the man inside himself to do that. So he left. He chose the program over you. He did it in the most polite way he knew how. And he has been telling himself, ever since the day he did it, that the polite choice was the right one. He wasn't ready to be honest. He just wasn't ready to be wrong. Here's the part that undoes him. And I want you to sit with this for a moment because it is the entire mechanism and I want you to feel where it lands. He didn't expect your quiet to be unembarrassed. He expected it to need him instead. He thought, and this is exactly where the humbling you're about to deliver begins, that when he left, the room you had been keeping would tilt. He thought the way you'd keep yourself without him would look smaller than the way you kept yourself with him. He thought he'd be missed in the same way air is missed when you leave a sealed room. Instantly, urgently, blindly. He thought you'd call. He thought you'd text. He thought the night you'd be most alone would be the same night he'd be most necessary. That was the choreography he expected. That was the script he had run before with other women, and it had always confirmed what he needed confirmed. He could pull away. They leaned in. He felt briefly that the lean was proof that he had been right. He felt briefly that he had done the kind thing. He was moved on, soft hangover cleared, silence returned, room quiet. Until you. Now I want to introduce the image that will carry you through the rest of this, because there is one specific image I want you to hold, the same physical object from the beginning of this until the end, and I want you to feel how it changes meaning as we go. The mirror. It starts small. He carries it everywhere. He doesn't know he's carrying it. It is the version of you he keeps in his head. The soft one, the cozy one, the one who didn't argue, didn't nudge, didn't name the pattern. He uses it in his memory like a souvenir. She was great. She was easy. The mirror is the polished one, the one you held up for him during a year of small compromises. And you change. Slowly, slowly. Not because you read a book. Not because you saw a TikTok. Because the ache of holding the mirror at his angle slowly became louder than the fear of losing him. So one morning you set it down. You set it down on the bathroom counter and you walked away. You didn't say anything. You didn't text him about it. You just stopped polishing his reflection. The mirror doesn't break. That's important. It doesn't shatter. It doesn't fall off a wall. It just stops being useful to him. It stops being the clean story he told himself that night. Because while he was looking at the polished mirror, the one you held up, he forgot that the mirror was being held. He forgot there was, somewhere behind it, the woman he walked away from. He forgot she had corners he hadn't seen. He forgot she had limits she hadn't named. He forgot she had angles he hadn't earned yet. The mirror that was so useful to him 2 months ago is no longer the mirror he can rely on, because the person holding the mirror, meaning you, is no longer holding. Now I want to walk you through something slowly. I want to walk you through what humbling this man actually looks like from the inside of his day, because most women think humbling someone means making them feel bad. That's not what I'm describing. What I'm describing is much quieter than that. What I'm describing is that you stop letting him feel above his own behaviour. You stop being the soft floor he walks on, pretending he's a hard floor. You stop performing below him. You stop keeping your needs in your pocket. You stop letting him rewrite the story of what you were into a kinder, smaller, easier version that he could carry around without consequence. You simply, accurately show up as the actual you. And the actual you is not the soft floor. The actual you is not the easy woman he remembers. The actual you is a woman who 3 months ago accepted, "I just don't have the capacity" as a legitimate sentence, and who is now sitting in her apartment on a Wednesday, wondering why she accepted it for so long. He didn't expect you to be unflinching. He expected you to be grateful instead. You were grateful for too long. You were grateful for his presence. You were grateful for his attention. You were grateful for the fragments he gave you when you would have preferred the whole thing. You were grateful in the way that an animal is grateful for a clean bowl of water in a shelter. Quiet, deeply, without dignity. That is what he saw when he looked at you. That is the mirror he took with him. And you, because you're a human being, will be tempted to call that generosity. It wasn't generosity. Generosity doesn't make you smaller. Gratitude in his presence did. Let me be clear about what humility is and what it isn't, because the word itself is being misused here, and you deserve to know the difference. Humility, as he understood it when he ended the conversation, "I'm not ready, you're amazing, this is on me," was humility where he kept the script and you were given the role of the bigger person. He walked away feeling brave. You walked away feeling small. He told the version of himself where he was the honest one. You told the version of yourself where you had been too much. That was not humility, that was staging. Humility is not staging. Humility is not him being a softer man. Humility is not a confession he makes to make himself easier to love. Humility is what happens to a man when the room around him is honest for the first time, when the woman who had been holding the mirror at his angle puts it down, when the room no longer flatters him, when the room is, in fact, the actual room. A man who is humbled is not punished. He is accurately met. He is accurately seen, and he does not like it. He finds it uncomfortable. He finds it unsettling. He finds it so unsettling that for the first time in his life, he writes the message he had been meaning to send to himself for 15 years. "I have spent my whole life keeping rooms softer than my behaviour deserved, and one woman kept that room soft for me for a year, and she stopped." He didn't expect you to stop. He expected you to keep softening the room forever instead. And there it is. That is the humbling I'm describing. Not humiliation, not punishment, not revenge, not a tactic. Just you, accurately, standing in your own room, no longer holding the mirror at his angle. Now, and I want you to stay here, because this is where his entire psychology will begin to openly rearrange itself. When he stops being able to rely on the soft mirror, he has two choices. He can find a new soft mirror, or he can look at the room. He tries to find a new soft mirror very briefly. He goes on a date with a woman who is very cheerful, and the cheerfulness is a kind of soft mirror he recognizes, and he lets himself be flattered by it, And he leaves that date feeling empty in a way he can't name. He goes on another date with a woman who is very easygoing, and the easygoings is a soft mirror, and he leaves that date feeling more empty than the last one. Then he takes a week off dating. Then he tries again. Then he tries once more. Each time the soft mirror he finds is slightly more shallow than the last. Each time he returns from it, slightly more aware that whatever was happening with you was not what he had told himself it was. He is going to find this unsettling. He is going to call the unsettled feeling not over her yet. He is going to call it timing. He is going to call it my pattern with relationships. He is going to call it anything but the actual sentence. The actual sentence is too close to the wound for him to look at yet. The actual sentence is something like, she was the only mirror I had that wasn't soft, and I told myself the softness was what I wanted, and now I am in a room full of soft mirrors, and I cannot feel anything. But here is the thing I want you to hold, because it is the entire reason you are going to allow the humbling without letting it become a weapon. He is not going to come back because he respects the silence. He is not going to come back because you punished him. He is going to come back, slowly, late, after weeks of pretending he isn't, because you made the room honest. And there is no human being who can endure an honest room for very long without admitting to themselves what they did inside it. He did not know, when he was making the choice to leave, that the room was not soft because of his preferences. The room was soft because of you. And now the room isn't soft. And he's not coming back to find a soft room. He's coming back to find out if he can be honest in it. That is what running looks like, when the room is honest. And here is where I want to slow down, because this part matters more than almost any other part. He is going to come back. I say that knowing the obvious risk of saying it, that you then stay up nights waiting for it. I want to say something very carefully. He is most likely going to attempt to return, not because of any single thing you did, because of the cumulative effect of the room no longer flattering him, because of the cumulative weight of not being able to feel in any of the soft mirrors what he once felt under your accurate one, because of his own quiet, slow unwillingness to accept that the only accurate room he ever lived in was the one he walked out of. But when he comes back, and I want this inside your chest before he arrives, not after, you will not receive him the way you received him before. You cannot. The version of you that would have received him the same way is gone. The mirror she was holding is down. The lights she had arranged are off. And if you receive him the way you once did, the room becomes soft again. And the slow architecture I have been describing rebuilds itself in a single week. And the whole honest thing you built by letting go of the polished mirror collapses back into the dynamic he expected all along. The way to receive him when he comes back is not to refuse him, and not to perform forgiveness, and not to manufacture a softer version of yourself than the one he has now met. The way to receive him is to be still the accurate mirror, not the polished one, the actual one. He will stand in front of it. He will see himself clearly. He will not like everything he sees. That is the humbling. He will make a choice inside that mirror, a real choice, the kind a man only makes once in his life if he makes it at all, to be the version of himself that the room has been asking him to be. Or he will not make the choice, and he will leave again, and you will survive it again, and the cycle will be over because the woman holding the mirror has stopped holding it down for him. Now I want to come to you, because everything I have been saying about him is, in a strange way, all about you. You, the version of you who held the mirror at his angle for a year, are not available anymore. That is the fact that all of this hinges on, and I want to be careful with it, because it's easy to say too quickly and lose the meaning. The version of you who held the mirror at his angle was a woman who had been trained, somewhere underneath her understanding of herself, to believe that being close to a man required him to be slightly less than he was, required the room to be slightly softer than truth, required her to be the floor that he walked on without watching where he stepped. She didn't know she was doing this. She thought she was loving him, She thought shrinking was a love language. She thought keeping her own needs quiet was a gift, and she was right that it was a gift to him, and she was wrong that it was one to her. It wasn't. It was a cost she had been paying for a year. Here's what I want to name, calmly, because no one is going to say this part to you. You were too available to him, not in the way that sounds light. Available in the structural sense. You were too available to the version of him that wanted less than the actual relationship required. You were available to just seeing where it goes. You were available to taking it slow. You were available to letting him define the pace, define the touch, define the language. You were available to the dynamic he needed from you, and you didn't realize, and I want to be gentle with this, that being available to the dynamic he needed was the same thing as disappearing inside it. You mistook the slow erosion of yourself for the slow building of a connection. They are not the same thing. They look almost identical from the inside. You find out which one you've been doing on the morning you wake up and realize you cannot name one thing you wanted that he gave you without you asking for it twice. That's the version of you he left with. The version that mistook erosion for romance. That version of you is the one the mirror he carries remembers. And that is the version of you he has been calling great to his friends when they ask about you. And that is the version of you he is, if he is honest, missing most, not because it was lovable, because it was easy, because it told him a story about himself he wanted to hear, because it was the version of the relationship that didn't require him to change. Here's the thing. He is going to miss the version of you that didn't ask him to change. He is not going to miss the version of you that did. He is going to miss of the woman who adapted to his limitations and call it I miss Hussey. He is going to miss the woman who mistook his restraint for grace and call it I miss who we were. He is going to dress the absence of the soft mirror up as grief. And when he does, you are going to feel the old pull. You are going to feel the gravity of the version of him that is asking you to come back into the room and hold the mirror at his angle again. You are going to feel like a woman standing at the edge of a familiar pool, knowing the water is shallow, knowing if you step in it, the room tilts back into the dynamic he constructed. And you are going to wonder, for one long and lonely night, whether stepping back in is worth it just to feel familiar. It isn't. Stay on the edge. Let me say something about what the actual version of you looks like, the version the new mirror reflects, because it matters more than almost anything else in this script. The actual version of you has edges, not sharp ones, just defined ones. She knows what she will say yes to and what she will say no to, and she doesn't have to think very hard about either. She slept through the night 3 nights in a row this week. That's not a small thing. That's the absence of him being the center of gravity showing up in her body. She laughed at something this morning, alone, in her kitchen, that she didn't have to share with him. That's the absence of him being the witness of her life, showing up as relief before she had any language for it. She bought herself the small thing she had been putting off for 2 months because the small thing was for a future that included him, and she has now stopped crafting futures that include him. That's the absence of him as the architect of her plans. She is sitting in her apartment, and the room is the actual room, and the mirror is the actual mirror, and she is allowed finally to see herself accurately. He didn't expect you to like who you saw. He expected you to need him instead. Let me explain something slowly, because this is where most of the self-help industry gets this exact moment wrong. The part of you that is rebuilding right now, the part of you that doesn't need him at the center anymore, that part is not a glow-up. It is not a strategy. It is not a higher value version of yourself that he will be intimidated by. It is not a long list of qualities you've developed into bullet points you can show him when he comes back to prove you've grown. It is not healing in the way the word healing is sold on Instagram. The slow pans into golden hour readings with a candle and a notebook and a quote. It is you sitting in your actual apartment on a Tuesday, eating an actual dinner, watching an actual show, with the actual absence of him in the room. And your body is registering this absence not as loss, but as something else entirely. Something it doesn't quite have a word for yet. Something more like relief. Something more like the room is bigger than you thought. Something more like the soft furniture you kept around to keep his comfort intact. The empty cushion, the small thing you kept on the nightstand, the careful distance you put in your voice when you called him. All of those things have been put away. The room is just the room. It is not the room you kept for him. It is the room you kept for yourself. That is the version of you he returns to. He doesn't return to the woman who had him on a pedestal. He returns to the woman who put him down at the level of the room. He returns to the woman who, when the architecture of her own life came back after the collapse of his, did not try to rebuild the room in his image. He returns, if he returns, to the woman whose mirror is accurate, and the accurate mirror is not gentle with his narrative. The accurate mirror simply holds still. Now I want to give you the small, real kind instructions, because you have been listening to me describe a mechanism for a long time, and you deserve something concrete. And I do not want you to be a person who has only understood the theory. Take a walk tonight, not the long kind, the short kind, the kind where you don't wear headphones, the kind where you just walk down a familiar street and notice that you don't need to text him about anything you see, the kind where the night doesn't end with proof of absence or proof of presence, just the walk. Call one friend you haven't called since you started dating him. The one who fell slightly out of the loop because you were busy being smarter than her about your relationship. Make it short. Don't perform recovery. Just say you're back. Move a piece of furniture 1 inch, anything. The chair by the window, the lamp on the nightstand, the mug you keep dropping into the wrong place because the old place had the coffee shop logo he brought back from his trip and you couldn't bear it. Move the chair, move the lamp, move the mug. Let the room be the room. Don't delete the photos. Don't do that yet. Not because you need them. Because the act of deleting, while you are still in the middle of the humbling, is the act of a woman who is performing decisiveness rather than feeling it. You don't owe the photos an answer yet. They can sit in the folder with the date you last looked at them. And on a quiet morning 6 months from now, you will not remember why you hesitated. Read 1 chapter of the book with the cover you keep rearranging on the shelf. Just 1. Don't tell anyone you started it. Move your body badly. Run ugly. Lift light. Stretch slowly. Do it with the specific pointlessness of a person who is not training to be attractive to anyone. The pointlessness is the point. The pointlessness is the room. Eat a meal with someone who makes you laugh in a way that has nothing to do with him. Sit at a small table. Order the small thing. Stay for the small amount of time. Notice that you didn't once think about whether to text him during the meal. That is the new architecture. That is the room. That's the re-entry. None of it is heroic. None of it is loud. All of it is real. Now I want to close. And I want to close the room around you. Because you came in tonight with the sentence he used playing on a loop in your head. And I want that loop to end, not on a slogan, but on something quieter. Here's what I want you to carry into tomorrow. You were not too much. He wasn't ready. Those are not the same sentence. The first sentence is something you can stop carrying. The second sentence is something that belongs to him. You kept both of them for a year. You don't have to anymore. You keep yours. He keeps his. The room gets honest. And one more thing, said without decoration, said the way a man says something he means exactly as much as he says, and not one breath more. If he comes back, and the slow mechanism described says he probably will in his late, clumsy, uncomfortable way, be the mirror, be the actual one. Don't lift it, don't angle it, don't soften it, just hold it still. And if he cannot meet himself in it, that is not your task anymore. That is his. You held the polish down for him for a year. You can let go of it now. You don't owe him the soft version of you. That version is the one he left anyway, a reset, a rebuild, a return you don't owe him. The mirror stays still. The room stays honest. You stay with yourself.